What's up, guys? This is Recruiting is No Joke live here at the Fountain booth at Unleash. We got another great guest. Welcome to the show, John. John Federman from Hire Road. Great to have you here. Tell us a little bit about Hire Road before we get going.
Sure. Hire Road is a company that offers an ATS solution, learn solution, an onboard solution, and most importantly, a people analytics solution.
Awesome. All right, I'm on the recruitment side, so I'm getting people in there.
Yep.
Give us a breakdown, people analytics, what is going on in that industry? What do we need to know?
I think that it's going to be different for every kind of category of customer.
Yeah.
So where the largest of large enterprises use people analytics, they use them in different ways, right? And when we think about people analytics and we think about our ideal customer profile, we think about a company that's a mid-sized enterprise. And what they're dealing with is a disparate HR tech stack. They're dealing with every piece of technology they have spitting out some dashboard. Seems like great stuff, right? You get a whole bunch of data. The reality is that none of that data connects to each other. You don't get confidence that there's a single source of truth. And basically what organizations are looking to do is to drive decisioning on their people via data like every other department of businesses already do. So you see it in sales, you see it in engineering, you see it in marketing. What you haven't seen is the ability to use data as a business lever. And the first challenge is how do you take a whole bunch of disparate data and have it make sense?
So what type of data are we talking about here?
Anything from churn to DE&I initiatives, to succession, to efficacy of which recruiter works, trying to understand beyond the cliche of employee engagement, what's the proof statements of employee engagement? Where are you seeing the trouble spots? How are you able to predict where the trouble spots will occur? And how do you proactively address them?
So employee engagement right now, as a whole, from what I hear, is down. Why do you think that is? I mean, obviously you got all those data points. So what are some of those common things you're seeing?
Well, I think that a lot of what organizations deal with is they simply don't know. They're shooting rifles in the dark. And so what people analytics does, it tries to piece together what feels like incongruous data sources. Data sources from your ATS, data sources from surveys, data sources from your onboarding, and really try to understand, well, here, if we didn't look at this data in an aggregated way, we wouldn't see that we're having a churn problem in our engineering department. Why is that? And then you begin to delve into not only how expensive it is to have that churn, but how to mitigate.
So from a recruitment perspective then, how does people analytics and recruitment, how do they work hand in hand?
Again, it's a big investment. Recruiting is a huge investment. Not only is it the time spent working with a recruiter, internal or external, but the dollars and productivity lost when a position isn't filled. And even more importantly, after you've gone through a recruiting process and you end up churning that employee in 6 months, and you're right back to losing money, and perhaps Groundhog Day, going right back into the same problem without the data to try to contextualize it and advise on what to do differently.
So obviously, tons of AI here. How are you using AI? What are you excited about as far as AI and recruitment, hiring?
Yeah, we just rolled a sentiment analysis tool via AI, which aggregates all the data from everything from surveys to exit interviews to interviewing for the positions, and try to get a sense of what the sentiment is across the organization against various features, functions of the business. And in so doing, what we've found, and one of the things that's most interesting is post-pandemic, mid-size enterprises are really typified by a ton of disparate technologies. And again, it seems like it's an embarrassment of riches of data. What it really is a quandary for a data scientist, for people to really kind of delve into what lessons can be learned. And so when you get that sort of key to the kingdom of here's how we can recruit more effectively, here's how we can mitigate churn of employees, here's how we can create an environment where satisfaction from the employees is up, then we begin to understand where perhaps our anomalies sit and try to address them.
So again, I've heard this year productivity is huge, right? Like how do we get the most out of the smallest amount of people? When you've got this data, how are you able to make those decisions? Or are those decisions you're able to look at?
Yeah, I mean, often they become self-evident, right? You begin to see what managers, what department leads are creating the best kind of engagement. And that's generally defined by how long people sit in chair, what their trajectory is for their career within the organization. If there's a promote from within initiative, how do you monitor that? How do you exploit it? How do you make it a value add and a benefit to the employees? Part of what our job isn't to just get the data into a single place, but to work and consult with a company on what are the questions you want to be asking?
Yeah.
What are the data extracts? What are the stories that you want to glean? And those stories are going to be different based on the audience. So for instance, DE&I is a fiduciary of most boards. And how do you understand, are DE&I initiatives working? Are they not? How do you begin to understand where your representation is across an entire ecosystem of employees?
Yeah.
How do you begin to understand and then imitate those teams that are performing exceptionally well? What are the factors that go into it? And how does it differ by region, by product, by age group? All those things come into play. And again, what we're really seeing here is sort of the last vestige, the last department in an organization which has not benefited by data. There's a glut of data. There's a ton of data, but it's not terribly useful.
One of the things I've also noticed, corporate trust, right? Just trust in corporate. Had a lot of layoffs, obviously, a lot of stuff going on. You've got people videotaping layoffs, right? There's just a lot more people open on social media saying things about company. How much does that have an impact? And have you seen just corporate trust as a whole down? And like, how do you use that data to bring that up?
The number one mistake you can make is put your head in the sand. And it all starts, as I described, sentiment analysis, but then it leads to predictive analysis. And you can begin to see the if-then, the cause-effect, and the data will paint that picture for you.
So you got to do something.
You got to do something with the data. And you got to think about who your audience is for the data. Again, your CFO has a completely different interest, right?
Yeah.
He or she wants to demonstrate the efficacy of the stack they've already invested in.
How long do you think from like an ROI perspective, right? You start looking at the data, you start figuring out where the problem areas are, you start doing things. It's like the ROI look like?
It's a really broad question, and the answers are just as broad, meaning if you're using the data, as we said, to create efficiency in recruiting. Well, we've got a whole bunch of metrics. It's been said that the value of a position is 4 times its salary. If that position is open for X period of months, what does that do to your total ROI and productivity? Each facet of the data drives to a different, as I say, a different constituency that cares about it and different action that result from it.
Where do you see people analytics in 5 years?
I see people analytics being...
Because there also seems to be a lot of confusion, or not, at least on my end. It's like I've heard people describe people analytics as different things as well. So,
and I think that's really valid. I think that there's been a lot of evangelizing, right? A lot of evangelizing, a lot of venture to capital, a lot of investment put into the idea of people analytics. And I think that what we're seeing and feeling is that people analytics was once the province of only the largest of enterprises.
Yeah.
They had a people analytics team. They had data scientists. They worked on visualization. What we're seeing now is that mid-sized enterprises, and I'm defining that as enterprises with maybe 750 to 5,000 employees.
Yeah.
So certainly not your Fortune 50 by a long shot. What we're seeing is that people analytics is becoming a must-have in those size organizations.
How are they building like a whole team or it's just one person?
The technology can help answer is what's sort of the breakpoint of hiring a full analytics team or finding a partner who in many ways plays that role. And I think the latter is where the opportunity is for the mid-sized enterprise.
So a huge thing right now, remote work in the office. I've been asking people on the street in Vegas what they prefer. Got some different answers. What are your thoughts? Do you think remote work continues to be like a trend that people want? Or do you think office where people coming back together? Which one do you think wins out?
I'll tell you from personal experience, where there's some level of hybrid is where we find our employees the happiest. Where there's the flexibility and the freedom to basically be a grown-up, do your job, get it done.
Yeah.
Do so on your terms, on your timetable.
Get the results.
Wildly attractive. That being said, it is difficult to create the same level of discourse, the same kind of relationship if it's purely over a screen. And so what we're hearing from our own employees is let's have 1 or 2 days that are office days. Let's do social events. You know, all the little things that in-office offer, hallway conversations, going out and grabbing a sandwich, getting to know people on a personal level. When you've got a predefined Zoom meeting, those things don't occur. And when we talk about employee engagement, it's my personal view that for many of us, we spend so much time working that there is a sense of community, there is a sense of family, and that's valuable. And it's a huge asset. I think a lot of companies are wrestling with how do you respond to the freedom that people have tasted, but yet creating a culture where people feel they're appropriately part of something.
So we had the comments too around like Nike CEO talking about remote work and kind of maybe stifling some of the innovation, but hybrid, you said, has that happiness level. So is there like an equal balance between the two? What advice do you have for like leaders when they're making that decision?
It's a great question, and people a lot smarter than I struggle with it. It's a really hard question.
Probably not even a right answer to it.
I don't know that there is a right answer. I think it's a time and a place for each organization. It's also a time and a place in the arc of someone's career. I know that I look back fondly at the days of being in the office every day, and some of those people who were my colleagues are my best friends 20 years later. I worry that dynamic probably isn't happening for a lot of young people.
Although I will say, a lot of young people I talk to, they're the ones who actually want to be in the office.
That's right.
Push for that as well.
That's right, because they know they're missing a component in their career. And, you walk around a trade show, and it's typified by generally people you've worked with or partnered with, and that's what a trade show does. It brings people together in a much smaller basis, on a much more individualized basis. That's what in-office is. It's creating those connections. So I think that most organizations are going to find hybrid as a go-to norm. Yep. And I think, to your point, it's going to be driven by the young people wanting to create those relationships.
Yeah, I love it. I know you're in the Boston area.
Yep.
Boston, people want to be in the office. Every recruiter leader I've talked to, I'm like, how do you hire people in the office? They're like, well, people want to be in the office. So.
Yeah, I mean, Boston is a unique community in that so many of the universities feed those entry-level folks.
Everyone knows each other.
And they want that community.
I love it. All right, well, last question. Where can people find out more about you? Where can they connect with you? Where can they find out more about people analytics in general? Yeah, so obviously there's a lot of new information sources on people analytics. There's specific venues that spend their time. But please check out higherroad.com. And we have the benefit of an incredibly strong team creating a lot of content. I love content. It's my favorite. All right, good. Then come to Higher Road and you'll see some content. Awesome. All right, John. All right. Thank you. Pleasure. Good to see you. All right. Yeah, good to meet you. Thank you for the time.